Tuesday, and welcome to the MSL Lead Chronicles. It's a podcast on a mission in medical affairs and leadership. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy, Chad Fellers, we're going to have casual talk about important topics and challenges in leadership. And we are so glad you're here. Stay tuned.
Hey, and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles. My name is Chad Fellers, one of your hosts, along with my nifty sidekick, Mary Morton. How are you, Mary?
I'm great. As you see, I've got on this is my Arch Manning t-shirt, because as this airs, we will be in the midst of Texas OU week, where we're going to clobber the Sooners.
They don't have any other starting wide receivers and alignment and something else, so hopefully you'll be able to achieve that this time, Mary.
Well, it doesn't really matter that much. Texas OU is not a predictable game. It never is.
Fair enough.
Because it always comes down to who wants it more.
True.
Yeah, that's why I always love to watch the I can't remember what they call it, but the Oklahoma State OU game.
Bedlam, something in Bedlam, I think.
Yeah, they call it the Bedlam. So invariably, when OU is having a fantastic season, OSU will come right in there and ruin their season by beating them at the Bedlam game. But that's always, I look forward to that game almost as much as I look forward to the Texas OU game.
Oh, okay. Well, just quick question before we get going. So how much are you contributing to Manning's NIL?
None.
I mean, it's like $3 million. It's ridiculous, I think, or something like that.
I would suspect the kid probably has a $3 million trust fund as well.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Not like he needs it, but he's a good kid. I mean, I've seen him in interviews and stuff like that. He's just, of course, he was raised by the legendary Manning family, and so I bet you he's learned how to be classy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, okay. I guess we better transition away from sports talk, because we've already had some great commentary and feedback that we are doing an amazing job. Maybe we should stay away from sports analogies and those types of things. Potentially, I do trust this listener. She was one of our first and one of our diehard listeners. So we can make a transition and maybe pick up sports for another day, especially if we're talking about Texas. We can postpone that for a long time as far as I'm concerned. So
I'm trying to win her over.
Yeah,
I'm not giving up. I'm trying to win you over that I do know sports. Anytime I'm dropping these, I'm dropping them for you.
Okay, well, keep at it, but maybe I can just give you her direct line, and you can try to do that over that. So anyway, it's just you and me again today, which is I think it's good. I don't get to banter about you to another guest, so I'm kind of disappointed about that. But I guess I can just do it directly to you as it comes. But yeah. I am looking forward to the conversation today. It's going to be really good, I think. I
agree. We couldn't have a guest for this one because this is a topic for you.
Okay. Well, why don't we dig into it?
Okay. Well, so welcome.
Tell us about it
today.
Yeah,
Chad Fellers. So I've been picking up, and I don't know if you guys have, out there listening, that Chad, for the past couple of months, every once in a while, he's dropping in something about, and I read that in the Social Styles Handbook. If you've never read it, you should check it out. And then, if you read in the Social Styles so I have to be really honest, I've never read the Social Styles Handbook. And I actually considered trying to add it to my Audible, but I think that's one of those books that I want to be able to hold. So, Paige and I are going shopping this weekend for a couple of items, and she loves going to the bookstore. Oh. So we're going to head to the bookstore and pick one up. So since you have, obviously it's a book that you rely on, and that you find meaningful. I do understand like kind of the overarching mission of the book, but that is so scratching the surface. So
Yeah.
I really want to get you to tell us all what this is all about, what we can all get from it.
Okay.
Fill us in.
Sure. Sounds good. Well, first of all, let me give credit to the author of the Social Styles Handbook. It's Larry Wilson is his name. But Larry does an amazing job. And what I love about this is, number one, it's a cheap book. It's very inexpensive. It's about the size of Cliff Notes, which is even better for me because my attention span is not that long. Being neurodivergent the way that I am, it's got great pictures and graphs and things like that as well too, which I think are very good. You can put it on your screensaver, whatever you have. You can have it popped up, especially in the virtual reality, right, or virtual world. Being able to see these types of things in the midst of conversations, I think it could actually even be helpful. But I guess we can start really with the key takeaways, similar to what we do. So I've got 3 of them here. The first one would be adapting to different communication styles is crucial for effective communication and building strong relationships. And that's with your team, that's with your coworkers, anyone really that you come in contact. The second is versatility in communication requires practice. It's not something you can just say, I can, especially when you've been speaking in one style for the majority of your life. The third would be applying the social styles in a team setting can significantly enhance communication, collaboration, and overall team effectiveness. So those are the takeaways that I want the listeners to make sure that they have. And can't wait to dig into this a little bit more with you, Mary.
Okay. Well, why don't we kind of start on that very first one? Why do you think it's crucial? I mean, it's a strong word. I mean, what goes wrong if you don't understand how to adapt to somebody's different communication style?
An easy way to think of it, and maybe it's a little drastic, but I'm pretty dramatic at times in some of my analogies. It would be like speaking a foreign language. Sometimes it may not seem that way, but the way people receive information is different from one another, right? And the consequence of that is a delay in acceptance of whatever that information is, truly understanding the intent of what you're trying to communicate, clarity and direction. It can lead to frustration as much as anything else, right? I mean, one way you can think about it is we've talked about the love languages as well, right? So if your acts of service and your significant other is quality time, washing the dishes, folding the clothes, all those things don't matter a hill of beans. I mean, those are great, but that doesn't fill up the other person, and that can leave the person that's doing those things frustrated, as well as the person that you're trying to show attention or affection to, or whatever. That can drive them crazy as well, and they can not have their needs met. So how do we figure out ways to make sure that we are serving our team well, serving those around us well too, right? So that's the reason why it's so important to make sure that when we're having conversations, we're intentional to be able to speak the language of our audience.
So when you started talking about the love languages, and you gave some examples of 2 love languages, acts of service and quality time, maybe before we go further, we dive into what are the social styles. So for how many are there?
So there are 4. And just to clarify, so there are 4 main components. They may have a mix of some, but everyone has kind of an anchor, if you will. And so those 4 are driving, expressive, amiable, and analytical. And I can share a little bit about those. So we'll start with driving. So characteristics: direct, decisive, give me the results, They want to achieve goals, very strong-willed, but very efficient as well too. So with them, quick decision making, very goal-oriented. As a consequence with that, because they're so or consequence or challenge, I guess maybe that's another word, with those that live in or that speak in the driver language, because they're decisive, they want to be direct and quick. They can be perceived as overly aggressive, or insensitive to others' feelings. So that's the first. The second is expressive. So outgoing, enthusiastic, persuasive, really are the characteristics. Have high energy, and they're driven to engage with others. They inspire people. They're creative. They motivate. The downside or the challenge that others may have from this is that those that are expressive may be seen as overly talkative or lacking focus on details. Don't you smile at me, Mary Morton.
What?
Yeah, I know. Anyway, amiable is the third. So supportive, patient, cooperative, values relationship and harmony. Always a good team player, empathetic, builds great relationships. The challenges, they can be perceived as indecisive, or even overly accommodating. And then analytical. So characteristics very detailed oriented, logical, give me the facts. They're very precise, great problem solvers. I think one of the challenges, they may be overly critical or slow to make decisions because they need to have every piece of information. So that's a brief description or high level overview of the four types of social styles. I guess I want to pitch it back to you, Mary. So like thinking through this, I'm not going to ask you to describe what my style is. I think you've already pretty much identified that. But I would ask, like,
just because I was smiling, I identified which one.
Yes, yes, and we'll talk about the importance of body language, right, and how that can help give you clues to what style someone has, if you're connecting with them correctly. But that being said, when you think about from the medical affairs perspective, with these characteristics that I described, what would you say, from a percentage wise, those that you engage, whether they're MSLs, medical direct, I mean, however you want to carve it out, like, is there a tendency, or do you see one of these kind of really driving, or not driving, really being the dominant, if you will, characteristic of those within medical industry? I'd love to hear your perspective.
I do think it's kind of all over the board, because I can tell you, I think I probably talked to a couple of out of each one of those categories today. The outgoing component that maybe you would think is in the expressive.
Okay.
Then maybe that one's a little more prevalent, but I think, also, now as soon as I say that out loud, I think maybe there's the analytical. Maybe that one's the largest percentage. But I'm going to just say it's like a pie chart, 25% of each category.
Wow. That's interesting. I would think, just from my experience, either the majority are either drivers. Just give me the facts. I'm a high performer. Just give me the runway. Leave me alone. Just tell me what you need. I'm going to go do it. Give me another project. Give me as many things as you want. Right? I'm driven. I want to be promoted. This, that, and the other. I think of that and analytical, kind of maybe being the drivers of medical affairs. Like, okay, so I'm data heavy. I love the data. I love being able to dig in and talk specifics and things. I think where where we might be seeing a shift is the need for expressive and amiable to rise up, or being able to communicate in that language as we're thinking about becoming trusted advisors, being the scientific bridge, and those types of things. Because some of those other, yes, you need to be able to speak those languages, but you need to have some of those other types of skills, if you will, that are built into those to really sustain and build relationships. So I think we're probably going to be seeing an evolution of that. So to your point, you might be seeing more of an equal distribution, but I think that there is a tendency for those really to have a base of both either the driver or analytical. Just from the conversations that I've had over the years, from my perspective.
So I got two questions for you.
Okay.
One is, do you think someone who is more heavily a driver, and I haven't read the book, which I've already said, but somebody who's more heavily a driver, more likely to expect someone else to adapt to their style? If they are,
Yeah,
they're,
I would say I'm certainly not going to call an MSL that comes to mind. I'm not going to call him by name, but thinking through, right, when we're having group conversations and things like that, yes, there is a desire to not be a story. I'm a storyteller. Uh, he does not like stories. He wants a 30-minute call to be a 10-minute call. Just tell me what I need. Tell me what you need. Tell me what I'm doing right. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, and let me go. And it's on me as well to be able to adjust to that. And I think over the years, it took me a long time. I was frustrated in ways because I thought my style was really this easygoing for everyone. Like everybody will like me just because of the approach and this, that, and the other. And it has nothing to do with liking, but it has to be with, okay, what is clear? What is the impactful communication to be able to get things done and to have more of a work satisfaction, job satisfaction is, how can I speak to those? I think conversely though, it's important for that driver to learn to be able to speak some of those other things as other types of styles as well, to be able to match that. And I think that's the part where leaders have a chance to coach as well, about being able to adapt to that. So I think it definitely is a give and take. But yes, drivers really tend to want you to adapt to their style. There's no doubt about it.
okay. I want to move on to your second takeaway, because I'm curious if what you're saying about how being able to, for the second takeaway, being versatile in your communication style requires practice. If you're sort of saying, like, it's not muscle memory, but if you're saying that after time, because you're intently trying to adapt, if at some point it becomes second nature, like you don't even think about it, and so what do you mean by it takes practice, and then what happens?
So, I mean, I think that there are certain steps that you could potentially take to help build the muscle, just like if you were working out, right? I mean, there are certain things you can't just say, I'm going to lift, I'm going to bench my weight, and without ever doing anything. I mean, maybe one or two genetic freaks could do that. Definitely not me. You have to really practice and do those types of things to do it. So when I think about the different ways, it's just different components. I think number one, first, truly understand and have an anchor on what those four styles are. Understanding what your style first is going to be the first thing that I would say is knowing how you like to communicate, have an honest assessment of that, and then start just listening to others that you're interacting with, how they talk, right? So that would be one thing. So improving in that way would be active listening. You can actually do active listening drills. I don't know if I'm sure there's probably some kind of AI tool for that as well too, right? But I mean, it's paraphrasing. And I hate, um, I hope my wife doesn't listen to this, but because there have been times where I've apologized, like I'm sorry, when she's frustrated with me, and I'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I swear she'll say, "What are you sorry for?" Right. So it's one of those things about listening and paraphrasing back, right? Like what you heard, instead of just kind of acknowledging going on. I think like an active listening drill you could do is that practice listening to someone's statement and then paraphrasing it back to them, right? That'd be one way when you can think about versatility is first listening and then being able to apply. You could do obviously we talked about the style assessment tools, doing the DISC, Myers-Briggs, those types of things will help you further understand. If you can't just look at the list and say, oh, that's probably me, that's another way to be able to do that. If you're a leader, I think it's a great idea. I just went through this week with part of the leadership team that I'm on. We went through the DISC and we saw everybody's profile. And so it was very enlightening. Okay, this is why this person speaks this way. This is why this is what's going to fulfill this person, right? It's so informative on those types of things, because when you think about emails and those types of things with no types of emotion, you're going to default back. If you know where someone stands, that gives you more of an inclination to what that emotion might be. You're about to say something.
How do you read me like a book? So yes, I was, because when you were talking about the different social styles, I was like, oh, driver, that's definitely it. And then when you started talking about the analytical, like, so the driver makes decisions like that.
Yep.
Based on what you said. And the analytical may take a while to. So when I'm deciding what to say in an email, it will take me forever to make the decision of words I'm going to use and things like that. And so the written communication, that's an interesting point. I think because there's no tone and no personality to the email, I'm always worried somebody's going to take something the wrong way, or they're not going to read it the right way. And I like to capitalize and bold and underline things if I'm trying to emphasize a word, and that is probably not really professional and a professional, like a business email.
I use exclamation points all the time, and that's probably not professional, but I try to convey energy, right? I mean, I think that, anyway, go ahead.
No, I mean, that was pretty much it. Like, I remember, gosh, maybe it was like 12, 13 years ago, I had a hiring manager call me and say, so-and-so sent me a text message and it had an emoji in it. And every time I get like an emoji, like I got an emoji and almost two back-to-back texts from one of my hiring managers, and the emoji was a bullseye, which he was telling me like,
you nailed it, right? Or that person.
And I'm
yep.
Like, I was so happy to see those emojis. But it made me feel really good. But just thinking back to this hiring manager like 12 years ago, she sent me like a winky face emoji in this text message. What is that all about? So much has changed in 10 years about how we communicate.
Well, and I would say we'll just build off the email example. Like with a driver, there is I'm a why person. You know that, right? One of the things I hate is asking people to do things without giving them context as to why they need to do that. A driver would want 3 sentences in an email. Hey, I need this. Please have it by this. Let me know if there are questions. That speaks to them more than this. To your point, I worry about how things are going to be read and all those types of things. I would say, though, sometimes the response actually is better if I communicate in the right way to the right or the way that their native quote unquote social style is, right? So I think that that's something we have to be better, just as employees, leaders, whoever that is, right? Is being able to meet people where they are. I mean, one of the things that a simple thing that you could do is, I don't know, we could actually play around with this, but like ask chat GPT, right? So write this email for someone with a driving style, write it with an amiable style, and see what kind of language, and see if it shifts, right? My guess is it probably will. And so if you know your audience, if you're active listening, if you're looking for nonverbal communication, all those types of things, right? If you know who you are and you can get a firm sense of this, I mean, if you really wanted to make sure you're being intentional, if you're a leader, you could actually say, okay, I'm going to maybe send it to your team. Say, okay, I'm going to send this email. I'm going to send it. There's actually going to be in 4 different ways, right? And they're all going to be on the same thing. How do you receive, or which style resonates with you the best? And that gives you that clue. So
now that is a great idea. And one of the things I think is interesting on the email thing, when I'm emailing someone, as you know, I'm very wordy. But I don't like wordy emails. So like, why am I writing that way? I don't know. But also, I pick up on that, like with my client partners, either my hiring partners or whoever, that if they're wordy, now I don't mean wordy, but I mean some of them are like 2 lines.
yeah.
And they may not even sign off with their name. I'm like, okay, that means if I'm emailing them in like 2 paragraphs of like 3 sentences each, they're like, oh, geez, one of these again, and they're probably like, so I try to match their style. I have one, a chief development officer that I work with. And when she emails me, she always says, Dear Mary. And it's not like super formal, but she always says, Dear Mary. And I'm like, I usually start off my emails with, Hi, Chad. I'm like, so, but whenever I email her, I feel like I can't say hi because it's too casual, so I usually say hello. I don't usually say dear, but I try to be a little bit more formal to kind of meet her a little bit, but not have her feel like I'm mocking her. But I just think it's so sweet that she says, Dear Mary.
Yeah, I think it's the most we can match and be authentic. I think is good. I think that's. I never know how to. I never know how to respond to that. I typically, if I'm being honest, I don't respond back with "dear." It will be more of "thanks so much for your email, comma whoever" or something like that. Will just probably be as structured as I get. But you're right. It's more of. I guess my style is I want to be I'm thinking to myself, I want to be relatable. And so if I start with a hi or a hey, or followed by hope everybody's had a good day, or hope everybody's had a good week, or this, that, and the other. But I realized too that could drive others crazy. And so how do you do that? And I think what the challenge is when you're leading a team, how do you speak to every single communication style in the midst of a team conversation? That's where things get really tricky, right?
I was actually just about to ask you that because, I know we're talking about leadership people, but I'm also thinking about how important this is to KOL interactions.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah.
So what, like if you're talking about like if you're communicating with your team in like a group setting, I'm thinking about if you're communicating with thought leaders in sort of a group setting, maybe you have 4 or 5 together from a practice, and you want to be relatable and engaging to a room full of people who may have 3 different dominant social styles.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I think so. It's hard. It really is. Like, I guess we need to actually go back and talk about maybe first about what communication styles best for each one of these. We didn't really dig into that. So we'll go there here in just a second. But I would say with amiable, they like connection, friendly, personal approach. It could be, if it's your first time, it could be a follow-up email or a one-off conversation with them. Hey, I would love to really, you seem so receptive to the information and so engaging. I would love to be able to connect and hear what your thoughts were and all those types of things. It could be a follow-up. It may not be actually in the meeting. So you just have to get creative in ways. But when we think about the communication styles, can we go there real quick as far as that?
I'm sorry for
You're fine. You're fine.
We kind of shoot from the hip around here. So.
It's yeah. And did you take your medicine today?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a routine. If I don't take my medicine at then I will wonder later if I remember to take it, and I'm afraid to double dose. So I will just be completely attention deficit all day.
Just get a booster dose. That way, if you think you have forgotten, you can always take it in the afternoon. Anyway, nevertheless, we'll get back to this.
This episode sponsored by.
That's right. I mean, this is a pharmaceutical type of show, right? So I speak from experience too. So for the record. All right. So let's go back to the type of communication styles that are best for each. We talked a little bit about drivers, right? Or driving, clear, concise, to the point communication. I'm horrible at this one, Mary. You know that. I have to be intentional with this. They don't want lengthy explanations. So I'll stop there with that. Expressive, animated, emotional language, sharing stories, ideas. They thrive on interaction and feedback. Like I can think about as a leader, those that want 25-minute meetings, those that want an hour. For the same type of thing, because they want that connection. And so being able to adapt, I think, is important. Amiable. So prefer a friendly, personal approach. They want to focus on building the rapport and a consensus. And then the analytical, structured, give me the data. That's the kind of communication I want. Give me data-driven communication. As much detailed explanation and evidence to prove whatever it is that you're saying so I can consider it before I accept it. So how you speak to these people with these people with these styles is important if you're really wanting to be able to establish that connection.
I don't want to generalize anybody, but so don't be specific, but do you think that there are certain collections of thought leaders, like this therapeutic area or that therapeutic area, that by and large tends to be more of one of these than the other? And do you think, as a hiring manager, is that going to influence who you hire to represent your company to those types of thought leaders?
You know what? That is, that's a really good question. And it gives me pause to consider. I think, if we're being honest, we have a tendency to look for some of those traits to our similar styles when we're looking for people, or those that can really, fluctuate to different or adapt in the midst of conversation. I would say, as a rule, I think of analytical. The first thing that comes to mind is the oncology space, right? With all the data that's moving, evidence that's coming day after day, new products, new things to market, etc. They just want the facts. They just want, or well, I know it's driving, but they need this to be able to make informed decisions. They really don't have a whole lot of time for anything beyond that, just because of the nature. Probably would put cardiologists in the same. Maybe driving, though they may be a drivers as well. Any type of I would say surgeon would be drivers as well, with that. So those that kind of carry both of those hats.
Yeah, so
Expressive.
that's
Oh,
that one when you were talking about the surgeons, because
yeah.
my nephew is a spinal neurosurgeon. And so whenever I text him, being a spinal neurosurgeon, I feel like I can ask him about anything that has to do with the brain or the spine.
Yep.
So I texted him about, because I feel like sometimes I have Raynaud's syndrome. And I texted him that question. His response was, bummer. I said, am I going to die? And he says, no. So
how did that make you feel? How did that
did
make
he
you
feel?
feel?
At first it made me feel not heard and unloved.
Yeah.
I'm his godmother as well as his aunt. But then I was like, okay, he doesn't seem concerned. And assuming that he loves me as his favorite aunt, I shouldn't be worried.
Are
And
you?
he's also busy and has more important things to do than worry about my fake traumatizing experience with maybe Raynaud's syndrome or phenomenon. Raynaud's phenomenon.
Okay, that's good. That's a great example.
It took me a
Yeah.
couple of days to reconcile that he didn't hate me.
So now maybe with this information, it will help you, whether it's sharing information or just receiving it from them as well too. So expressive
I learned something. Thank you.
expressive or amiable. I would probably say. I'm not so much. I don't know about expressive. I would say amiable though. Dermatology, allergy, and asthma would probably be the types of therapeutic areas that would be more amiable, if you will,
Yeah, like Dr.
to
Wynn when we had
conversation.
him on. I would totally call him
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yes. Although he loves analytics, I mean, he's as smart as can be and is driven by data and makes decisions quick. He has those other things. You're right. I mean, I think that fits him well. So yeah, I think you can actually, that may be a great thing to even consider. Maybe not so much of, do you pick somebody because that's their language? When it's an interview, how would you communicate this type of information with someone that is analytic or with this type of in this therapeutic area? Where do you think would be the best way or the best way to communicate? This could be a great example, a way to get a sense of, can they flex to really, does their style or their ability to adjust their style, is it going to accelerate things and make things easier, or is it going to be something that they're going to have to overcome to really make an impact and establish relationships with their KOLs? It's a great question. I think we should put it into practice some way.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's an interesting one too. Yeah, my wheels are turning. But I do want to get to the last takeaway, which I feel like we kind of touched on a little bit, which was more like how you can apply the social styles that you've learned about and apply them within your team, within your MSL team or in, sort of a group setting or whatever.
So I would say there's probably 4 or 5, maybe six things to consider. We've already talked about a couple of them. One is identifying communication style of the people that you're engaging with, their behavior, tone, body language, those types of things. Are they direct? Are they to the point? Or they ask for more details? Are they methodical in their approach? So understanding that one. Matching their style. I think that that's something too. Once it's identified, how do you try to meet them where they are? I guess an example of that would be someone's analytical, focus on providing the data and then detailed explanations around the data. If they're expressive, engage with enthusiasm, share stories or ideas. So it's important to match their style. I remember, I always say this, right? The Maya Angelou, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. Part of that is matching their style. Adjusting tone and pace, aligning with that, I think is important as well too. If you're speaking to someone that really is valuing connection, that's amiable, if you will. If you're moving way too fast, like you were talking to a driver or something, it may feel overwhelming. So be mindful of that.
And that becomes an emotion.
That's
I mean,
right.
that's an emotional response. My quick example is I did have a hiring manager that every time I got off the phone with her, I felt like I was shaking. My adrenaline was like through the roof. And I think I just inherently felt like I had to talk faster and I had to talk. I like without even thinking, I'm getting anxious thinking about it actually right now. And I love her to death.
Yeah.
But I know that's the feeling I always got when I got off the phone with her.
So with that, right? I mean, so I guess one of the things you could do is have and you may already have this anyway, but like bullet points of things you want to say and communicate with that person, right? So almost like you have the things lined out, boom, 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 with it, and then don't give any additional context unless additional context is asked for. Even acknowledging that, saying, "Hey, I like to give as much information." So you are fully informed. I'm just going to start with the base. If you want that, I will give that to you. But I need you. I want to be effective for you. So I'm going to rely on you to ask for that, and then just go through that. Maybe an idea. So let's see what else. We talked about nonverbal cues. Asking questions, right? I think it's even thinking about KOLs. We talk about this, right? Don't go in the first day and try to just overwhelm people with data. If you don't know kind of what drives them, you don't know what they're passionate about, you don't see how they respond, if you're not paying attention to those things. So you have to look for nonverbal cues by asking and listening and validating whatever it is that you hear. I think it's important to provide, ask for feedback, or even ask for clarification. I think it's okay to ask people if they're getting what they need, right? Or if what you are saying, not even what you're saying, but how you're saying it is impactful. I really think that idea. I think I'm going to try that with the email correspondence, the different styles, and try to better understand what the best way to communicate, to see if that changes behavior potentially, or even just kind of responses. So I think asking for those things and being willing to adjust is just really important.
Yeah, I love that idea, the Chat GPT, and to same email in a different social style. I I think it's really important for any professional, but we're gearing this towards MSLs and MSL leaders to familiarize themselves with this, because someone may think that a community, like somebody who is expressive, who is meeting with a thought leader, that they're meeting them for the first time and they don't know, and the thought leader is they think he or she is being terse,
Oh,
and they're just like, get to the point. You can kind of tell that they're like, hurry up, get to the point, I got stuff to do. That suggestion you made of ask a follow-up question, so before you leave you making sure you're serving them, you're giving them the value that they need, and that this driving behavior is not a negative thing. That it's just that's how they want their chunks of info. Don't let it like upset you for the rest of the day. It's just how they don't hate you.
Yeah. I mean, even that, it's okay to even pick up on nonverbal cues and ask things in the moment. Like I, I can tell, or I can tell. I know you were a few minutes late being up for the meeting. Completely understand that. Want to make sure. Do you still have time to connect right now, or would love to do that? I mean, it. Because number one, it could be just their style. You'll find out that way if it's their style, or maybe they were really are just overwhelmed, they're behind and things, but they want to make time because they've made this commitment to you, etc. And so you don't. It's not something that you're going to pick up all of a sudden always the first time. I think it's important to have it will give you clues, and then you can have that validated over time or even throughout the conversation. But yeah, even asking questions in the midst of it just by active listening and watching people. Don't be so set on your agenda that you can't that you're going to completely destroy things because you're not paying attention to that. I guess so. I know we're getting close to the end of our talk about this, but I think I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how you can leverage your team's social styles to elevate team impact. Can we talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah. I think that's a great way to wrap this all up in a pretty bow.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go with
Pretty
this. All
pink
right.
bow.
Pretty pink bow. That's right. So again, we talked about identifying. First thing you got to do is identify your team members' social styles. Whether you use assessments, observations, practice examples, like we just talked about, the emails. I mean, it could even be on a conversation on a one-on-one that you could just speak it out to them and see how they receive. If you don't want to be so direct, I don't see why it's not going to hurt you to be direct because people will appreciate that you're trying to accommodate what it is that their needs are. So just be direct and ask. Encourage team members to share their styles with others in the group so they can understand that as well too. I think sometimes you'll see teams mesh together really well. I think in my experience, it's because they're so intentional to understand others. They seek to understand. We talk about that as part of the whole servant leadership component, but really understanding others and how to really celebrate that will really strengthen a team. And then even leveraging strengths, right? So if someone is analytical, I mean, why wouldn't you assign them to tasks that align with that strength? So if they excel in data analysis, put someone with analytical that's their base. Put them on a project for that. Expressives could be amazing for brainstorming sessions when we're thinking about strategy, et cetera. Doesn't mean that you pigeonhole them by any means, but that could be a great place to at least, especially if they're thinking, I'm trying to tie all this together, right? We think about all the different IDP conversations we've had and this, that, and the other. I mean, to really put people in where they can excel in their giftings. I think that this is one of the things that we're talking about. How can you leverage those giftings that they have, not only for the team's benefit, but for their satisfaction? So leveraging strengths and then enhancing versatility. I think, like we talked about, it does take practice. And I think if this is important, if you value this, if you believe that this will really shift the impact that your team can have if they can learn to speak and work together well, and this is definitely a way to do that, then carve out time to do it. Conduct workshops, training sessions, those types of things, while may not always be the most fun thing to do for some people, there really could be some benefit for it as well too. And I think that the evidence will show really quick. So those are some ways I think that you can really utilize your understanding of people's social styles to the benefit of not only the team, the company, the people you serve, but even the individuals too, and their growth and development and their satisfaction in the job that they have.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think about how I know probably don't have a lot of recruiters that listen to this podcast. But man, I think there's so much value in this and being able to communicate in ways with our clients, both our candidates or the companies, that they respect the fact that they're being heard and that they're being recognized for how they like to receive information. And I'm sure your thought leaders do too, and your team members that you're leading. The time that the boss comes in and they deliver information to them in a way that is clearly their style, and they're like, oh, he's listening to me, he's paying attention to me. I mean, I think your team's going to value that you're speaking to them in their language, as you referenced at the beginning.
It's not going to hurt anything. If anything, there's no negative consequence to implementing these things or giving them a try, right? There's only potential upside. Like I'm even thinking about like, what if you were to be able to track your KOL? Like we talked about, like what are your social styles of what your KOLs are? What if you got to the point where you could track those types of things, and maybe it helps you with a roadmap for your team as they expand this, that, and the other. I think if you learn to speak in that way, you could even develop trainings that are geared more to that type of audience. I mean, there's so many things that could be done with this that I think will really kind of help set you apart, maybe from other individuals, and certainly set your team apart as well too. So I can't recommend this enough. I still have a lot of practice to do. I have to be mindful of those types of things when I'm in conversation. Thankfully with you, I get to talk your ear off because I know you're going to reciprocate that. And we have lots of conversations. I have to work on that with other people though, to kind of change that, because I can't be myself like I am with Mary all the time.
Well, my last thing I have to say is, for anybody who is watching and not just listening, I have to apologize that you've had to stare at that razorback through this entire episode. I've tried to envision it as being anything else but a razorback. So sorry, y'all.
Well, I'm sure you want to make the bet this year and about the whole calling the hogs and things like that. I may have to do it from a point spread though, because Texas is pretty good this year. I have to admit, I feel like I need to go spit after I just said that. But nevertheless, way to wrap up. Way to just put this on a real sour note to end this conversation, Mary.
Well,
Thank you.
I mean, I thought that the woo pig suey I had to do was really cute with the little pig emoji, the talking pig emoji thing. And it was expressive. It wasn't. It was so not expressive.
You are certainly full of it, Mary. You certainly are. You certainly are. So, listeners, thank y'all so much for thank you so much for hopping on and listening again. I hope that you found this information impactful. There's some takeaways. I really think putting a few of these things in practice will really elevate not only your success as far as connecting with others, but really elevate the impact that you want to bring, you want your teams to bring, et cetera. Just as a reminder, we can't develop in isolation. if we can do that, it certainly takes a much longer time to do that. Where it's impactful, and I think we've already seen, is when we develop one another, and that's our goal here at MSL Lead Chronicles. So until next time, have a good one, lead well, and communicate well. We'll talk to you soon.